This is me at 22. I got a big smile on my face because I'm about to start my dream job at the National Basketball Association. But fast forward 8 years later, and I'm no longer on that trajectory to be the next commissioner. In fact, I'm no longer working at the NBA at all. I'm working in partnerships at a company called Lucid Software. I'm sitting in a hotel in Toronto about to prepare for a partnership conference with Google later this afternoon. Frankly, I couldn't be more excited about the path that I'm on today. But it took a ton of hard lessons in my 20s to get to where I am. And in today's video, I'm gonna share the top 5 things that I wish I would have done differently to find more career fulfillment and purpose earlier in my life. And if you're in your 20s or even in your 30s, by the end of this video, I promise you'll have an action plan to get on the trajectory that you want faster than I did. Lesson 1, I wish I would have been more curious to explore areas outside of my own wheelhouse. When I was 10 years old, I met ESPN2 anchor and Korean American broadcaster Michael Kim. I loved sports growing up. I admired him deeply and I wanted to be just like Michael. But he warned me that day that as an Asian, it would be very challenging to break into the mainstream, just as he struggled to get airtime on the main channel ESPN. So I wanted to defy that stereotype and become an Asian American leader in the industry. So as a junior at Stanford, I worked for Stanford student radio station covering women's basketball. I had summer internships at NBC Universal, Turner Broadcasting, and ESPN. I was on that trajectory. Now, particularly in school, it can be so overwhelming to see so many different opportunities that doing what I did at the time made sense. Just focus on what you think you want. But I took things to the extreme looking back. I didn't even look at the D school, which teaches design at Stanford. I didn't take any business courses at the GSB. I didn't even notice the student entrepreneurs around me building cool projects. Now, I'm not saying that had I changed, I would have been a successful entrepreneur earlier on in life. But I do wish that while I was doing my main thing in sports media and entertainment, I would have kept my pulse on one other completely different area to explore. That's why I strongly advocate learning or building something outside of your major or your day job, particularly when you're in your 20s and have that time to explore. You'll be glad that you'll have a wealth of experience, skill sets, and interests that you would have gained from whatever it was you were doing outside of your major, outside of your day job, that you can either apply on your current path or use to pivot. And that leads to my second thing that I wish I would have learned sooner, that working hard is not the answer to rising up the corporate ladder. Now, up until I was 22, I thought that working hard was my competitive differentiator. I was the top ranked table tennis player under the age of 12 and 14 at just 10 years old in the US. I was on the US junior national team at 17 years old. What I quickly learned is that working hard is not the answer in the real world. I didn't always work smart. I was always focused on doing the best possible job on any project that my manager gave me. But I didn't think from the company's perspective, or even my managers, of all the projects I received, which are the most important to prioritize and why. I also didn't understand the corporate politics behind the scenes. While you have some control over your path, there's just a lot of luck that's involved. And it's all about being at the right place at the right time. I didn't internalize the importance of relationship building, that it's not about what you do, it's about who you know. I wasn't advocating for myself when I wanted that next promotion. I just thought that it would just come to me if I did the work. But that's not the case. You have to let your manager know the path that you want to be on so that they can help you achieve your goals. They need to be your strongest advocate. And you can't assume that they know what you want. All of these things made me realize that in my current role as an associate coordinator, making less than $50,000 a year in New York City, I was nowhere near sniffing the commissioner status, even if I stayed at the NBA for 15 or 20 years. The third thing that I wish I did sooner in my 20s is I wish I knew my what's and my whys. This is an exercise that my uncle told me to do when I was transitioning from the NBA to CBS Interactive. And he said, Preston, I want you to write down the 5 most important things that you're looking for in your next role. Rank them from most important to least important. And on a separate column right next to that, I want you to write down a single sentence for each thing you want, why you want them. Your 5 what's, your 5 whys. Now, to get there, I needed to do 2 things. The first was to self-reflect deeply. I thought back to my previous experience at the NBA. what I did like, what I didn't, and what I wanted to do in my next role. So for example, I wanted more autonomy over the projects that I had. I wanted to make data-driven decisions because that would give more credibility to the proposals that I was putting out there. I wanted to be a core function, not a support function, so that I could get more visibility to senior executives at the company. I also reached out to people I deeply trusted, asking them what were my core strengths that they saw, and they provided me with a lot of insights. The fact that I was great at relationship building, the fact that whenever I was in front of clients, I just naturally shined. Whenever I had the opportunity to connect with someone, to make them feel the passion I felt, is when I did my best. So I knew that I was searching for a more external facing role than an internal one. When you can find that intersection between your passions and your strengths, that's when you found that blue flame, that spark that pushes you towards where you want to go. Now, there are three major reasons why having your what's and your why's are so important. The first and most importantly is it helps you make sure that you're on the right path. I do this exercise every 3 months to make sure that my current role, my current side projects are the things that I want to be working on, because that'll let you know when to pivot and when to stay the course. The second is it's really helpful when you're trying to find your next job. I've been in both the hiring manager's shoes and the interviewees, and I can assure you that whenever I ask the question, can I walk you through this list that I prepared, and that list is your what's and why's, your hiring manager will absolutely love this because it'll do two things for them. The first is that it'll make you stand out from your competition. I promise you that not many are doing this. And the second is they'll truly appreciate you because you're showing that you care that this role is a great fit for both sides. You can literally create a scorecard for yourself against the main 5 criteria and how well each role addresses each criteria. And finally, this helps you avoid that dangerous trap of comparing yourself to other people's success. I know that I'm guilty of it, or at least I've been when I was much younger, where I'd look on LinkedIn, I'd look on Twitter, I'd see all the amazing accomplishments that people are talking about, and I'd wonder, why am I not doing the same? But when you can go back to your purpose, your North Star on where you want to be, what you want to be doing, and why you want it, I promise you that if you focus on that, you'll be much happier and you won't really care at all about what others are doing because you know you're doing the right thing for you. The fourth thing that I wish I knew in my 20s sooner, the importance of relationships. It's not about what you do, it's about who you know. Specifically, Keith Ferrazzi's book, Never Eat Alone, talked about the importance of having a relationship action plan. In a Microsoft Excel or Google Sheet, you need to create 3 tabs. The first tab is your concrete specific goal of what you want in your career over the next 3 to 5 years. And the more specific, the better. The second thing you want is a list of all the people that you need to get to know that will help you achieve your goal. This could be mentors, it could be people in the role that you want, it could be current colleagues, it could be people from school, whoever it is, write it down. And then the final tab, you need to write down how you're actually going to get in touch with these people. Is it going to be through LinkedIn or other social media? Is it going to be at a conference or a school event? And there are 3 key tenets to great relationship building. The first is generosity. You need to be willing to give value to others without expecting anything in return. Second is vulnerability. You don't necessarily need to share your deepest, darkest secrets, but you need to come off as authentic without any ulterior motive, and they'll come to respect and trust you even more. And the final thing is accountability. This is the importance of follow-up. Whenever you align on certain action items that both of you need to take, follow up over an email the next day to say exactly what you and that person will do, and check in with them and report back on what you've done yourself. This has been a huge catalyst to my career growth. Outside of the NBA, every other role that I've had has come from personal connections that I've nurtured throughout my career. And it's frankly the reason why I'm currently working a BD and partnerships role at Lucid. I get to build relationships with the top tech companies and startups for a living. And through my what's and why's exercise, I know that relationship building is not only something I thrive in, but something I deeply enjoy. The fifth thing I wish I did differently in my 20s is I wish I understood the importance of communication. This is a lesson that I learned when I was 28 years old, interning at MIT Startup Accelerator before heading into business school. I saw many great student entrepreneurs, engineers from MIT who had built amazing products, things that I personally knew I could never build. but they lacked one key ingredient, and that was storytelling. The ability to tell investors, board of directors, why their company was so important, why it needed to be in the world today. And without that ability to communicate, they couldn't get buy-in, not only from those people, but even their own teams. Storytelling was one of those things that I grew up cultivating throughout my entire career, but I didn't realize just how important it was while covering games as a play-by-play broadcaster for Stanford women's basketball, or crafting presentations and delivering pitches to potential sponsors at the NBA and CBS. Storytelling, though, is not the only core part of communication that's so important in business and your overall life. It's also in relationship building. When you can make the other person feel heard, when you make it your most important mission to understand what they care most deeply about and how you can add value, that's when you have their trust, their respect. That's when people start to like you. And that's something that ultimately changes the trajectory of your career. And that's why I'm starting this YouTube channel to uplevel your communication, your relationship building, your public speaking skills to change the trajectory of your career, whether it be as a business leader, a teacher, an entrepreneur, or even a creator. Now, in particular, public speaking is really, really hard to get right. It's something that I constantly study and try to perfect in my own professional life and for others. So watch this video on how Deion Sanders does a fantastic job presenting to his team so you can pick up the core skills that you can apply in your own work.